Hi everyone, thank you for joining us today. My name is Patrick Egbunonu. I'm the President and Chief AI Officer for Informanos Analytics and AI. But more importantly, I'm also on the board of the Black Entrepreneur Ecosystem, Southeastern Ontario, that is hosting today's show and today's podcast videocast. The Black Entrepreneur Ecosystem Southeastern Ontario is a non-for-profit organization based out of Kingston, Ontario, and the focus of the organization is to support the growth and the prosperity of Black entrepreneurs in Southeastern Ontario. And I'm so glad that we're able to do this show today. And again, I want to say thank you very much for joining us. Okay, let me introduce our guest for today. She's someone that I admire a lot. Her tenacity, her strength, her vision, but also her entrepreneurial spirit. She's the owner and founder of Pedal Works Café and Studios. Please join me as I welcome Martha Williams. Thank you very much for joining us today, Martha.
Thank you for having me, Patrick.
Excellent, excellent. Before we get into the questions I have for you, could you take time to introduce yourself? Who are you, what do you do, and why do you do what you do?
Yeah, sure. Well, I am I was originally born in the States, so I have a dual citizenship, but I grew up here in Kingston, a little bit north actually, in Inverary, Ontario. So I grew up here, I went away to go to school, and I was gone for 30 years, but I came back now 7 years ago because I really love Kingston and my family's here, and quite frankly, I was not happy living in the States. And so yeah, about 10 years ago, 2014, is when I sat down and made a vision of where I wanted to be in 10 years. And in 10 years, I knew I wanted to be back home in Kingston. And I also knew that I wanted to create something that, that I was really passionate about and that I had a level of expertise in. And so that is where the original vision came from of Pedal Works Café and Studios. And so basically this space, it's 3,000 square feet, and we are located at 1412 Princess Street. We are in an area, when I was doing market research, where there wasn't a lot of community spaces. And so I wanted to create something where people could gather. But as I mentioned earlier, my area of expertise is really the fitness area. I've been involved in fitness for about almost 30 years. Started off in public health and public housing and nonprofits, and always loved fitness. And I made a conscious decision that, with privilege of course, is that I had a choice to do anything I wanted. And so the vision was to create a space where I could do the fitness piece, but also have the artistic piece, and also have the academic piece, and have the social piece. And even though I was told to pick one niche, every business class I took was like, no, pick a niche, pick your demographic, be very narrow in that scope. I decided to break the rules, as I've been doing my whole life, and to do something completely different. And so that's what I do. I have a spinning studio, and we are the only spinning studio which is licensed. It is a brand that is in Southeastern Ontario. I also offer yoga, mat Pilates, but everything is done to complement spinning. And spinning is a brand, and it is much more mindful. It's not entertainment. It's about mindfulness and building people's awareness of their bodies, and in addition to really finding clarity of mind on the bike. And then I have a cafe, because what we like to do as cyclists, we like to have a coffee after a ride, or a beer, so I am licensed, and a place to gather after a ride. But I wanted to open this up to the community as well. And as an artist myself, consigning your work is really expensive. People take 50%, and I wanted to make sure that I could provide a place to sell my own work, but also sell other artists and give them a more fair percentage. So that was a big draw as well. And so that's kind of what I do and how it happened. And like I said, this is my community. I live walking distance from here, so it wasn't something I was trying to create outside my community. Because I wanted folks in my community to be able to utilize the space. So I rent spaces out for birthday parties and apparently podcasts now. And but yeah, that's a little bit about what it is I do and how it started.
Excellent. No, it's amazing to hear you talk about what you do and the passion you have. And again, when I come into your space to see the studio, but also see a space where people can come together, gather, have events, socialize. We host a couple of events at your place, and I think that's amazing that you have this space available to our community and also to the general community. So let's talk about entrepreneurship. Why in the world did you decide to become an entrepreneur?
I think I ask myself that question every morning or every night or maybe twice. But my mom was an entrepreneur. She won't admit it, but she was. Meaning that she was a single mom, and she bought property, and then she would carve out spaces to rent out so that she could manage and raise me and my brother. And I saw that independence very early. And I think that it resonated with me because I've always had a side hustle, a entrepreneurial side hustle. So I've always had a kind of job, but also had, at one point I was walking dogs. I called it Furry Pals. This was in 2008 when the market crashed. I lost my job. I was like, what can I do? And I was like, I'll walk dogs, because everybody had a dog in my neighborhood. And I've always done stuff in the fitness industry. I've had my own personal training business for decades. And then I was a coach, so I did some executive coaching as well. But being an entrepreneur, I think, is just part of everything I have seen in terms of like how I was raised. My mom did have a regular job, but she had a side hustle. Wow. And so I really believe in like the you may not even realize it, but you absorb what you see, right? And so it was always a part of who it's always been a part of who I am. But I think this big project came out of setting the goal in the first place, and also knowing that I couldn't work for somebody for the rest of my life. I'm very creative, and I like to do things my own way. And in spaces where I have been, there has been a lot of resistance for people like me. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs probably have had a similar experience. There's something special, and there's a level of bravery and confidence to be able to step out and trust in yourself. And not everybody has that. And quite frankly, actually, I shouldn't say that. There are a lot of people that have that, because every time I think about it, when I start to doubt, I'll look across the street at KFC. He was an entrepreneur, whatever his name was, Colonel something, right? Yep. One day he decided to step out and to start something. I'll look at, Avis. There was a day when someone just said, oh, I want to rent cars, and I'm going to do this. So I kind of remind myself that a lot of these big corporations came from a small space. Like the brand Spinning started off in someone's garage. He was an entrepreneur. His name was Johnny G. And he started this incredible, he was the very first person that invented indoor cycling. Other people copied him. And I think that the entrepreneurial spirit is in us, but I do think what happens is that the way that we are educated is to work for others. And so it's taken out of us. But I think that we all innately are entrepreneurs. And so it's just a matter of getting rid of those layers of being told that you can't, and being brave enough to step out of the 9-to-5 convenience of having a paycheck, and just trust yourself, because we have the capacity, everybody does. So it was that, and it really had a lot to do with, you know, just not wanting to answer to somebody. I mean, I do obviously have to pay overhead. There are things I have to do to stay in business, but I get to choose every day how I use my space. And there's a lot of freedom in that.
That's very powerful, what you just shared. And I remember, you know, talking about you observing your mom and just watching her growing up. I remember we were having a conversation about, you know, me teaching my kids about entrepreneurship, and you told me, Patrick, you don't have to worry, they're watching you. They see what you do, and they're gonna want to copy what you do, and they're gonna learn from what you do. I guess my follow-up question, I have two follow-up questions. One is around, what are some of the challenges that you faced or you're facing as an entrepreneur? And I'm going to follow that up by asking, what are the unique challenges you face as a Black entrepreneur? But let's start with the broad question. You know, as an entrepreneur, what are some challenges that you faced in the past or you're facing? Because sometimes when you want to pursue your dream, there's going to be obstacles on the path to glory. What are those obstacles you faced?
So yeah, the obstacles are, I mean, there's a lot of obstacles. If it was easy, everybody would do it. I mean, at the end of the day, like, it wasn't easy. There's nothing easy about it. Working with engineers that didn't listen to me. They, like, I had to go back and say, that's not what I asked for. I asked for something else. But they charged me for what they wanted to do. So there were obstacles there. There were obstacles with, obviously, contractors that, I mean, 2 guys built this thing and it took a lot longer than it was supposed to. So it was 2 months. And then it was just me, right? I didn't have anybody else. I did this by myself. So I didn't have anybody else to help advocate for me. And I didn't know a lot of the things. And so that's kind of why I'm really interested in helping other entrepreneurs that want to build a brick and mortar, because I can certainly give advice on how to avoid some of the literal pitfalls that I fell into. People take advantage of your lack of information. So being really knowledgeable, and there were some of the things I could have done better for sure, but you don't know until you know. And I was like, man, it'd be great to redo this again. I probably could have saved thousands of dollars, but and time, right, and stress. So and then of course, you know, the things like self-doubt and, you know, people around you like thinking people still think that I'm like, why did you do this to yourself? And I'm now, though, after almost being in this a year, I'm getting more of, I'm proud of you. But that wasn't what I was getting in the beginning. In the beginning, it was why. It was like, this is risky. How many businesses fail? I was just getting all this negative. And so for me, you know, how I overcame that is just having a really strong belief in what I'm capable of doing. Like, you can't do great things in life if you don't have confidence. If you're easily swayed because of someone's opinion, then you're just not gonna be able to get to that next level. And it's not about you know, success is subjective. Like, I mean, for me, it was just about, this is what I want to do. I have a big, not a fear, I have a big goal for myself, and that is, on my last days, I want no regrets. And if I want no regrets, that means I have to take risks. I have to go out there and do the things that nobody else believes that can be done, which everything can be done. And just have faith in myself. And also, you know, just be really grounded in what my skill set is. Like, I'm not doing, I mean, to be fair and transparent, the cafe is probably the more challenging piece, because that is not my area of expertise. It's becoming that, but it definitely wasn't in the beginning. So the obstacles are, there's always an obstacle. I don't think that there's anything that you do in life where there isn't an obstacle. And so it's not a matter of, you know, like, it's a matter of how you manage that and know that you're going to get it. And you can allow yourself to have the emotion of, fear or, you know, feeling overwhelmed. But also you have control. And that's the beautiful thing about being an entrepreneur. I don't depend on anyone else. I have to depend on myself. And so the obstacles come and we just manage it. And, you know, that lends itself into the next question you had, which, what is unique about being a Black entrepreneur and then a woman of color, is, the same things probably multiplied. And I do think in certain spaces, dealing with engineers, it was all white men I was dealing with. Being a woman of color, you know, those are things that aren't like in these spaces. Dealing with entrepreneurs and contractors, they're not used to, right? And I wasn't used to, but I have the confidence to be able to stand up for myself and say, you know what, that's actually not okay, or that's not what I want, and you got to change it. I'm the one paying the bills. You know, I'm paying you. Because there was a lot of times when it seemed like I felt, even though I was paying them, I felt like I was working for them. And I was like, this doesn't feel right. Like I'm writing these big checks to you, and you're telling me how to do my job. So obstacles are part of life. I don't look at that as I don't look at those as setbacks. I've always been the one. You tell me I can't, watch me do it.
So I guess I have a follow-up question. And again, one of the goals of this podcast and video cast is to encourage Black entrepreneurs in Southeastern Ontario, or folks who are thinking about getting into entrepreneurship within our community, within the Black community. And you talk about confidence, you talk about confidence over and over again. How did you get that confidence? Like, so maybe somebody out there is saying, wow, I wish I was as confident as Martha.
I mean, you know what? My mom said I was born this way. She said I just came out in the world and was like, so there probably is some of it that it's a genetic thing. I'm not sure. But the one thing I do know is that when you take risk and you have success, it builds your confidence, right? If you never take the risk, you never find success, then you can't build confidence. And then it also is how what your perspective is on failure. To me, failure isn't, and this is not new. You'll hear this from any entrepreneur or anyone who understands that failure is an opportunity to learn. You learn from things. And so for the decades of working for other people and the number of times I got turned down for a promotion, or I got a bad performance review because I was too aggressive, and believe me, that came up a few times. And I know that I worked harder than any of my peers, and I was more passionate and more educated. I mean, quite frankly, I am. And those were failures, but I used that as fuel to to create something in every space I'm in, to create something that is unique and different, and also it serves more than me.
Wow.
So I think it had a lot to do with intention as well. Like, I had a conversation with my contractor, and he said something about the landlord being, telling him that he was too soft dealing with his clients, being me, because I didn't pay him right off, right? He was like, no, you can pay me in installments, right? And he said to me, my contractor said to me, we're all in this for money. And the landlord is right. And I said, I'm not in this for money. And the landlord is not right. And everyone in the city hates the landlord. So why would you aspire to be that? Just to make money. So your intention has a lot to do with your level of confidence. Because if I was, to be honest, like if I was in this to make money, I probably wouldn't have any confidence, because that's not where my strength lies. My strength lies in building communities and building connection and offering people really great, high quality, classes, and actually having an impact on how people feel about themselves. That's where my skill set is.
Wow.
If you told me, Martha, make $1 million, I'd be like, I don't know how to do that. I know how to do this. And if this leads to that, that's something else. But that's not my goal or my outcome. I want to elevate people when they come to the door, so that when they feel better and they feel more confident, then they'll go out there and they'll be able to do the things that they didn't think they were able to do. So it's a different intention.
That's actually amazing. I think that, again, one of the things you talk about is, why are you doing what you're doing? And you talk about, it's not about the money, it's about the impact It's about impacting the community. It's about adding value to the individual that comes to your studio, and making sure that they have a quality value-add experience using your studio, even using the cafe. Let's talk about your education and some of the personal achievements you've had. 'Cause I remember a while ago I was listening to someone introducing you. I was like, wow. Tell us about your education and some of the things you've done on a global scale and a national scale in your area of interest in sports and stuff like that.
Sure. Yeah.
If you don't mind.
No. I mean, so I went to Wellesley College, which is a private women's college outside of Boston, where Hillary Clinton went to school, and Diane Sawyer went there, and Madame Albright, and some other very famous people. But I didn't know that. If I'd known that, I probably wouldn't have gone. Not because of, it's just I didn't want to have an association based on, my basketball coach wanted me to go to Harvard, and I absolutely refused. He said, you have the grades, you can do it. I was like, I don't want to, because I don't want someone to look at me and have an expectation based on, you know, what Harvard represents. And I saw what that did to some of my friends who did. And because the first thing they're going to think is that affirmative action. And I knew that. At 17, I knew. So I did win money from Harvard, though, on an essay, which I used to buy a bicycle. I was supposed to use it for, you know, anyway, it's fine. I was supposed to use it for tuition, but I did use it to buy a bike. And so then I spent a couple years I worked in public health, and at that time HIV was really rampant in the Black community, so I did a lot of work there. And then after that I worked in public health, then I went to graduate school, and I went to UCLA, and I did a combined major in urban planning, psychology, and African studies. So it was this kind of weird, again, breaking rules and wanting to create something that I knew I wanted to really work in urban spaces as a Black psychologist. That was what my initial goal was. And then, you know, I was always working out. I was always in the gym. I was, you know, I did giant slalom skiing for 7 years. I raced pretty much all over the world. And I did downhill mountain biking, and I, you know, played like recreational, but did basketball, volleyball. So I was always very involved in the fitness industry or fitness, you know, forum. And I was an undergraduate counselor at UCLA, and I had students coming to me because they were miserable about the area that they were studying. Their parents were pushing them into these professional things like, you know, like into poli-sci and pre-med, and they were like, I don't even want to do this. And I was like, what do you want to do? And it was this, I want to be an actress. So I do have a little story. And one of the students that I was working with, I said, you know what? We are so privileged, like we forget. You don't have to pick cotton. You don't have to work in a field. You get to pick anything you want. Because when you pick something you love to do, the money comes. It comes. And I don't know if I had any influence on her or whatever, but a few months later, I saw her on The Prince of Bel-Air, and she was Will Smith's, I know we just talked about that, but Will Smith's girlfriend on the series. And I said, you know, I hope that I had something to do with that, but even if I didn't, that has still been my, you know, my biggest advice to people is to, when you have the opportunity to choose what brings you joy, choose what brings you joy, because then you don't live a life of regrets. So I did that for a while, and then when I really got into fitness, after that I went into public housing. I worked for the Atlanta Housing Authority, and I was the director of youth programs. And so I wrote grants from HUD, like $1 million grants to help young people get a trade. And then after that, I just went full on into fitness. And so I decided that I started teaching spinning 27 years ago, and I knew that I wanted to do more. I went to a conference in Miami, and I remember the person who was leading the conference or that session, he said to me, he goes, you know, when you are hearing from your students how amazing you are and you're impacting their lives, it is now your responsibility to teach other instructors how to do that.
Wow.
And it had a powerful impact on me. So then I started the whole process of, you know, it was a long haul, getting all the certifications and doing all the things to become a master instructor for Mad Dog Athletics, which owns the brand Spinning. And there's 3 master instructors in Canada, and I'm one of them.
Wow.
So it's a pretty big deal in the fitness world.
So we're very lucky to have you here in Kingston. And for folks who want to come and take lessons from your studio, they're taking lessons from one of the top leading experts in the field and masters here in Canada and actually globally. I have 2 more questions for you as we wrap up this show today. One is around if you could give any advice to a new entrepreneur in Southeastern Ontario, a new Black entrepreneur in Southeastern Ontario, what would that advice be? Someone that wants to start their own business, launch their own venture, step out and do something and run something or build something, what would you advise that person?
Just do it. I know that sounds corny, but it's just, you wake up one day and you take one step. I mean, for me, it started, write it down, visualize it. Every class that I taught for the last 10 years, I saw this in my head. I really believe in how you manifest what you want. Everything that we do starts with a thought. Every single thing we do. The fact that we're here right now started with a thought. Our thoughts are powerful. So if you want your thoughts to work for you, you got to be really conscious and aware of what you're thinking. So if you're thinking about failure, you'll fail. If you think about success, you'll succeed. And it's really about taking that one step, whatever that is. For me, it was like writing it down, never forgetting it. And then the second thing was talking about it. And I know there's some people that advise you not to talk about it because people can be negative. So if you're sensitive to people, for me, negativity, someone saying I can't makes me, it gives me energy.
Feel.
Yeah, I'm like, watch me, you know, watch me do it. So you have to know who you are. And I think that that is actually a very important part too, is you got to know what your skill set is. If you're going to be an entrepreneur, know what you're good at. Don't just go out there because, you know, somebody said this was a good idea. No, because there are many franchisees that have failed because they don't have any idea what the heck they're doing. They just buy it. They buy a franchise and they get told the steps, but they're not really invested in it because they don't actually have any like knowledge base of it. And I've seen that happen. And so, and I, you know, passion is a huge thing. It's a huge energy driver. It gets you up in the morning. It gets you over the humps. It gets you, like, when you're exhausted, it gets you, it gets you to keep going. So being passionate about what you're doing, have good intention. You know, I really believe in that businesses, when we change, is how we operate as business people, that the human comes first. When we change what the KPIs are to being, you know, our key indicators are how happy we are, what we're offering in terms of our service and our business model. You know, that's my advice. My advice is just be honest, be true. Don't let money drive you, because money is anybody. I make money, I don't even see it. It's there somewhere. You know what I mean? Like, it's not even tangible. But how you feel every day about what you're doing, that is something, and that's a legacy that you can leave for your children, and you'll be on your last breath and you won't have regrets. Wow. Yeah.
One last question, and I ask this question, I'm targeting folks in high school. If you could go back to high school and talk to the high school Martha, what would you tell the high school Martha? If you could go back into the past and talk to yourself in grade 9, 10, 11, 12, what would you say to yourself?
You know, I was a pretty headstrong kid, and I don't think I would tell myself to do anything differently. I'm pretty sure that everything that I chose to do brought me to where I am. And I can say, like, yeah, I don't think I would have changed anything. I really don't. And that's the thing about being, I think that's the thing about being confident. Trust in your dream. Trust that there is something inside of you that is driving you in the direction that you need to go, and that every experience you have is giving you the tools that you need to do it. And so I can't look back and be like, oh, there was one point where I was like, man, I wish I had gone more into the exercise field instead of spending 6 years in this academic field where I was like, if I had gone, but I'm glad I did the academic side, because it taught me how to research, it taught me how to write, it taught me how to do public speaking. I got a lot of good skills from that. And so I don't think I'd tell myself anything different. I'd just be like, yeah, you got it, keep going.
Okay, very good. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you
for taking time to join us today and to share your experience, to share your knowledge, to share your passion. And for the folks who joined us today, thank you again for taking time to listen to us. This is coming from the Black Entrepreneur Ecosystem, Southeastern Ontario. Again, our goal, our vision, our mission is to help build Black entrepreneurs to enhance their prosperity and to help support them as they grow their business, as they scale their business, and as they add value to the various communities in which we serve. Thank you very much, Martha.
Thank you, Patrick.
And thank you for all you do in our community, but also on the board of BEESEO.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much for joining us for today's episode. Please feel free to join us again for another episode where the Black Entrepreneur Ecosystem in Southeastern Ontario interviews another Black entrepreneur in our community to understand their business, to understand their passion, to understand how they've been able to achieve success as an entrepreneur, and to also understand what advice they have for those who are looking to grow their business and those who are looking to get into entrepreneurship within Southeastern Ontario. Have a wonderful rest of your day or your night or your weekend, and see you next time. Bye for now.